The giant demon clan ancestor held the red axe in his hand. Right now his aura was completely different from before. It was as if he had become a different person just by holding this axe. Red gas came out of the axe and entered the body of the giant demon clan ancestor. The red gas could be seen coming out of his orifices. From a distance he looked extremely fierce. This red gas didn't stay around him. It was absorbed back by the axe, creating a cycle. The red gas would enter the ancestor's body, and then come out to be reabsorbed by the axe. Every time this cycle completed once, the aura of the giant demon clan ancestor became stronger. He floated in the air and lowered his head to look at Wang Lin with a grin on his face. There were red lines gathered at where his left arm was cut up. These red lines slowly took the shape of a red arm. With a roar, he threw the axe with his right hand. Then the left hand, which was formed by the red gas, caught the axe. The moment he caught it, the axe released a bright, red glow. "Wang Lin, accept your death." As the giant demon clan ancestor shouted, he stepped forward and swung the axe downwards. He moved very fast. In the blink of an eye, he arrived before Wang Lin as the axe descended. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He raised the celestial sword and then it collided with the red axe. Boom! A sound that could shatter the sky and earth and travel through the highest heavens could be heard the moment the collision occurred. Wang Lin could feel a powerful force from the axe. His body trembled as blood seeped out from his mouth and he quickly backed up. He backed up 1,000 feet. The giant demon clan ancestor coughed out a mouthful of blood, but his feet felt like they were rooted in place, so he didn't move at all. However, his body quickly shrank until it was the size it was before. Although the current giant demon clan ancestor wasn't a bag of bones yet, he didn't look as strong as he did before. A roar came from the mouth of the giant demon clan ancestor. The current him was like a primal beast. His eyes were glowing red as he took a step forward and charged at Wang Lin with the red axe. "Little child Wang Lin, die." The giant demon clan ancestor raised the axe and swung down again. As Wang Lin backed up, his eyes became cold. His hand formed a seal and he said, "Honored soul flag." The sky darkened as if all the light had gathered before Wang Lin. A 30-foot-tall soul flag that was glowing bright like a flame in the darkness appeared in his hand. The flag's pole was 30 feet tall, but the flag itself was much larger. It was moving in the air without any wind and there were 12 golden purple dots on it. The moment the flag appeared, countless ghostly wails came from the earth like there were lingering ghosts letting out their resentful cries. Strands of black gas came from ground and began to flee in all directions. The sky was completely dark. It was as if black sand had covered the sky and the sun and moon had fallen. The giant demon clan ancestor's charge suddenly slowed down and the red axe in his hand let out a loud buzzing sound. His red eyes revealed a hint of shock and a very well-hidden sign of terror. This is the soul refining sect. The giant demon clan ancestor took a deep breath. He seemed to recognize where the flag came from, but he couldn't believe it. After all, there was no way for the flag from his memories to appear in Wang Lin's hands. But at this moment, this flag looked exactly the same as the one in his memory, making it so he had to believe it. The 1 billion soul flag was used by Wang Lin for the first time. At this moment, at the border of the giant demon clan, the purple-robed woman who was still watching suddenly frowned. Du Tian kicked me out of the soul refining sect so he could pass the 1 billion soul flag to Wang Lin. Although this is only an illusion, it is not something the giant demon clan ancestor can resist. The purple-robed woman let out a sigh. She had been observing Wang Lin for a long time, and still wasn't able to find his Dao heart. She might be able to succeed if she uses a secret technique while he is passed out. Thinking about this, she took a step forward and was about to head over when she suddenly stopped and turned around to look into the distance. A purple-robed burly man wearing a straw hat was walking over from that direction. His voice arrived before his body and said, "Lady Lu Mei, your opponent is me." The purple-robed woman looked at the burly man and whispered, "To have Marshal Uncle Young's straw hat means that you are one of the 4 candidates he selected. However, with your mere mid-stage soul formation cultivation, you cannot stop me." The burly man let out a laugh and said, "Lady Lu Mei's cultivation is too much for me, but I can't just ignore Senior Young's order. How about you have a drink with me for a bit? Then I can leave and say I didn't disobey orders." The purple-robed woman moved a strand of hair behind her ear and let out a beautiful smile. "You are an interesting person, but you will have to wait for me to help the giant demon clan ancestor first. Then I'll have a drink with you." The burly man shook his head and smiled. "That's no good. Wang Lin is my friend. How could I let you leave?" The purple-robed woman let out a sigh. She looked at the burly man and said, "Leave. I don't want to hurt you." With that, she prepared to leave. The burly man sat down in the lotus position. His hand formed a seal, and his domain immediately appeared. Behind him, the image of a young man appeared and looked at the burly man with deep admiration in his eyes. The purple-robed woman paused once more and looked back at the burly man. Behind her beauty was a very well-hidden ruthlessness. She whispered, "Emotion-cutting domain. No wonder you were chosen by Martial Uncle. What willpower, what a strong heart. To comprehend the emotion between master and disciple, you created an idea from intent, then used the idea to accept a disciple. To love the disciple as your son, to show kindness to gain gratitude, and to use the tragedy to enter the soul formation stage. Everything you did was to make yourself completely immersed in this master/disciple relationship. The day he finally comprehends his own domain, and is about to break into the soul formation stage, is the day where he must kill his own disciple. Not only must he kill his disciple whom he loves like a son, he can't give him a quick death. He must slowly make his disciple suffer. Only then can the pain in his own heart grow enough for him to use this sadness to reach the soul formation stage. It looks to be filled with emotion, yet it is ruthless, but somewhere in there is still a hint of emotion. To reach the soul formation stage like this is definitely not something a normal person can achieve. Back then, when Wang Lin saw this person, he couldn't help but let out a sigh. It wasn't something he could do himself. Wang Lin held the 1 billion soul flag up, and then entered it with his origin soul. The flag began to move and a howl that could pierce the high heavens came from inside it. Countless soul fragments came out from the soul flag following the lead of the 12 golden purple soul transformation soul fragments. The giant demon clan ancestor's expression changed greatly. He never thought that Wang Lin would have this kind of treasure. He felt very bitter in his heart. If he knew that Wang Lin had this kind of treasure, then no matter what, he wouldn't have started the fight. Using his full power to escape would have been the best choice. However, now that things had reached this stage, he had no choice but to fight. If he were to retreat now, the only road left for him would be death, so he might as well go all out. A hint of madness appeared in the eyes of the giant demon clan ancestor. With a loud shout, he charged out once more. With speed even faster than before, he raised the axe and shouted, "Founding ancestor's right arm, help me kill this person." A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. This lighting was red, and when it crossed the sky, the earth temporarily seemed to be dyed blood red. The giant demon clan ancestor was the person holding the lightning bolt, but compared it, he looked very small and insignificant. The red lightning bolt became the only thing left in the sky. As it descended, the shadow of the red axe could be seen inside the red lightning. Wang Lin looked at the red lightning before him. His eyes were calm as he pointed forward and said, "Soul flag, devour." The 1 billion soul fragments charged forth. As the red lightning descended, the 12 golden purple soul fragments charged out. They were as powerful as 12 soul transformation cultivators. Their hands formed seals as they all worked together to activate a spell. Rays of golden light connected the 12 soul transformation soul fragments to form a net that trapped the red lightning within. At the same time, the 1 billion soul fragments around the net seemed to have received an order from the 12 primary soul fragments. They all charged toward the net from all directions, giving off an aura that felt like they could shatter the world. If one were to look from above, the 12 primary soul fragments formed a circle and countless soul fragments surrounded the circle. At this moment, the countless soul fragments charged into the circle. Boom! 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 As the soul fragments charged in, the heavens and earth shook. It was impossible to see what was going on inside. One could only occasionally hear the miserable screams of the giant demon clan ancestor. But just at this moment, a ray of red light cut an opening through the soul fragments. The giant demon clan ancestor, who now looked like a bag of bones without any sign of life, charged out holding the red axe. After he appeared, he immediately coughed out a large mouthful of blood. He gave Wang Lin a poisonous gaze and was about to escape, but he was still too late. The countless soul fragments once more charged forth. The 12 golden purple primary souls let out eerie laughs and pounced at the giant demon clan ancestor once more. The giant demon clan ancestor let out a wry smile. How could he resist the 1 billion soul flag that even ascendant cultivators dreaded? Although he had the founding ancestor's axe, with his current cultivation level, he couldn't use its full power. His eyes lit up as he let out a roar and he threw the axe at Wang Lin. The axe broke through all the soul fragments and closed in on Wang Lin in the blink of an eye. Wang Lin's eyes sparkled. He didn't show any sign of worry. When the axe got close, the celestial sword blocked it. Boom! More blood seeped out of Wang Lin's mouth and he was forced back several tens of feet. The axe was knocked away and landed on the ground. The giant demon clan ancestor's face was pale, and his eyes were filled with madness. He shot Wang Lin a vicious look and took a deep breath. Then his origin soul shook and he shouted, "Bloodline power!" The reason he didn't use his bloodline power until now was because if he were to use it before he finished his possession, it would cause grave damage to his origin soul. It was very likely that his origin soul would collapse from using it, so it would be no different from suicide. Only when he completes the possession will he be able to use the bloodline safely, because a majority of the backlash will be absorbed by the body. Although some of it would still reach his origin soul, it was withstandable. Wang Lin's eyes were cold as he looked at the giant demon clan ancestor. He pointed at the soul flag and even more soul fragments charged out. Wang Lin had to kill this giant demon clan ancestor, who knew that he had the heaven-defying bead. He had to kill him no matter what. The entire sky seemed to be moved by a giant hand, and then a giant vortex suddenly appeared above the giant demon clan ancestor. This scene was exactly the same as when Wang Lin saw him use it against Sun Tai. At this moment, countless soul fragments covered the giant demon clan ancestor. They were all in the process of devouring him. The giant demon clan ancestor let out a sinister laugh. Turn! The giant vortex suddenly began to turn, and an unimaginable suction force appeared. The moment it appeared, some of the soul fragments around the giant demon clan ancestor let out miserable screams and were sucked in. Wang Lin felt the powerful suction force surround his body, and his body unwillingly flew toward the vortex. The giant demon clan ancestor shouted, "Wang Lin, this old man will risk my origin soul shattering to trap you in the void." There were countless soul fragments surrounding him, and the 12 soul transformation soul fragments had already entered his body and began to devour his origin soul. His flesh had already been sucked dry and his origin soul was damaged. Wang Lin's eyes were calm. As he was sucked into the vortex, he looked toward the giant demon clan ancestor and let out an intriguing smile. He whispered, "Devour." The moment he said that, the soul fragments began to devour even faster. The giant demon clan ancestor let out several miserable groans before his origin soul was completely devoured. This generation's giant demon clan ancestor had died. But the bloodline power had already been activated and Wang Lin's body was dragged in. The moment his body entered the vortex, his reached out with his right hand and all the soul fragments quickly formed a chain to keep Wang Lin from being sucked in. Using the window of time the chain of soul fragments bought him, he activated the formation he had prepared ahead of time. As he felt the suction increase, he quickly recalled all the soul fragments and of course he wouldn't forget the giant demon clan ancestor's back. Then the suction force increased even more and Wang Lin knew he couldn't resist it any longer. His eyes suddenly lit up as he looked at the giant axe 1,000 feet away. He reached out toward it, but a powerful force resisted his hold. Wang Lin let out a sound of surprise. At this moment his body was being quickly dragged into vortex. Wang Lin raised his hand again and used all the spiritual energy in his body. "Collect!" he shouted. The axe resisted once more, but this time Wang Lin had a tight grip on it, and he dragged it toward him. The resisting power from the axe became even stronger. It was trying to break out of Wang Lin's grasp. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He pointed with his left hand and a few golden purple souls flew out to bring the axe back. At this point, half of Wang Lin's body was inside the vortex, and at the moment he was pulled completely into it, he finally managed to bring the axe over to him and put it into his bag. Then Wang Lin disappeared from planet Suzaku. Shortly after, the vortex faded away. There was only the giant demon clan ancestor's broken body left on the ground. From when he was forced to come out until the moment he died, he didn't get any chance to release the seals on his clan members. He could only watch as his clan fell from grace. Wang Lin's figure appeared in the void outside of planet Suzaku. His face was deathly pale without a trace of blood. What a powerful bloodline power! If the giant demon clan ancestor had reached the mid or late stage of soul transformation, the formation ancestor Du Tian gave me wouldn't have been of any use at all. Wang Lin pondered a bit before slapping his bag of holding to bring out the star compass. He controlled the star compass to fly toward planet Suzaku. Li Yuanfeng and the giant demon clan ancestor are both dead. News of this should quickly spread across planet Suzaku. Right now the most important matter is to help Wan Air get through the second arrival of the Heaven's Messenger. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and the star compass flew even faster. Half a month later, planet Suzaku appeared in his view. From here, planet Suzaku really did look very small. Next to it was an even smaller planet. This was where Wang Lin was accidentally transported to on his way back from the celestial realm. Wang Lin pondered a bit. Then he steered the star compass toward that small planet. The star compass flew toward the small planet like a meteor. After he entered its atmosphere, he saw a mountain range below him. The star compass lost its effect in the sky, so Wang Lin jumped off of it and put it away. Then he moved like lightning. He disappeared as soon as he moved, and when he reappeared, he was already 5,000 kilometers away. The spiritual energy here was much weaker than on planet Suzaku. It was also very impure, making it unsuitable for cultivators to absorb. Wang Lin moved like he was very familiar with the surroundings. After a day, he arrived before a tall mountain. With a scan of his divine sense, he found a transfer array on the peak of the mountain. The formation is still here. Wang Lin stood before the ancient transfer array. He looked down at it and began to ponder. Back when he was teleported here from the celestial realm, he appeared in this transfer array, and it was also this transfer array that sent him home. I killed Li Yuanfeng and the giant demon clan ancestor, so it must have caught some attention. I might as well spend a few years here cultivating and then quietly I'll go back. With that, Wang Lin sat down cross-legged and his avatar and original body split. The original body sunk into the ground. This planet was only 1/10 the size of planet Suzaku, so with the body of a 3-star ancient god, Wang Lin could withstand the pressure at the center. He sat down in the middle of the magma and began to cultivate. Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and a ray of red light flew out, turning into a giant axe before him. This axe was glowing red and it released a powerful killing intent. Wang Lin pondered a bit before trying to use his divine sense to leave a mark on it. Just then, a powerful force that resided inside the axe bounced Wang Lin's divine sense away. Interesting. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as his hand formed a seal and his origin soul left his body. He looked at the red axe and sucked. The red axe trembled before it turned into a ray of red light and was swallowed by Wang Lin's origin soul. There were now 2 items inside Wang Lin's origin soul. One was the 1 billion soul flag and the other was the red axe. His origin soul returned to his body. There must be an axe spirit inside the axe. I won't force it out, but I'll suppress it with the 1 billion soul flag and refine it with my origin soul. I want to see how long the axe spirit can last. Wang Li sneered as he took out a bag. This bag of holding belonged to the giant demon clan ancestor. He touched it to imprint his own divine sense onto the bag, and then the objects inside quickly appeared in his mind. The giant demon clan ancestor had a lot of good stuff inside his bag. There were several dozen celestial jades and even top-quality spirit stones. There were naturally some treasures as well, and although they were powerful, they weren't anything noteworthy. After all, for the giant demon clan, their bodies were their best weapons, so treasures weren't used much. However, there were 2 items that caught Wang Lin's attention. One of them was a half-empty red jade bottle that contained some blood-like liquid. Wang Lin smelled the liquid and confirmed that it was indeed blood. When he saw the blood, he had a feeling that he had seen it before. Wang Lin pondered a bit while holding the bottle, and then suddenly remembered. When he was exterminating the Tang family, he had found a similar bottle on Donghua. This blood contains a hint of the bloodline of the ancient gods. Back then I used the bottle to activate an ability of the ancient god. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Although my original body became an ancient god from practicing the ancient god tactic, it was completely based on my own cultivation. Back then I only obtained the inheritance of knowledge and not power, so there are some abilities I can't use. This is a very useful thing for me whether I let my original body absorb it or use it to use an ability. No matter how big the price of this fight was, just getting this was worth it. Wang Lin took a deep breath and carefully put the small bottle into his bag of holding. The other thing that caught Wang Lin's attention was a wheel-shaped treasure. This wheel wasn't large. It was only about 1 inch in radius. The wheel was extremely plain without any decorations or shine. There were even signs of rust on it. The reason Wang Lin was interested in it was because Su Ligua told him that there was a soul sealed inside it and begged him to release the soul. Su Ligua's words made Wang Lin be on guard. He understood Su Ligua very well because in a way Su Ligua was created by him. Su Ligua had the intelligence that wandering souls lacked. The fact that he was a nascent soul cultivator turned into a wandering soul had a big part in this. After that, Su Ligua's intelligence slowly recovered until he became the devil sword spirit he was now. Su Ligua's personality was that of a scaredy cat, but at the same time he was also very proud. Overall, this made him a very complex devil. For him to beg Wang Lin so much to release the soul made Wang Lin cautious. Interesting. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. After pondering a bit, he was able to guess what happened. The giant demon clan ancestor must have used the soul inside the wheel to tempt Su Ligua. This was why Su Ligua was still thinking about it even after returning to him. After looking at the wheel for a bit, he took out the celestial sword. The moment the celestial sword appeared, Su Ligua appeared as well. He let out a howl as he stared at the wheel with glowing eyes. Su Ligua quickly said, "Master, this is the treasure wheel. There is a soul inside it. Quickly release her." Wang Lin calmly asked, "How do you know about the soul inside this treasure wheel?" The giant demon clan ancestor called her out, "Master, quickly release her." Su Ligua's expression became very anxious. Wang Lin looked at Su Ligua and asked, "What cultivation level does this soul have?" The anxiety on Su Ligua's became even stronger. It was like he could hear the little sister fairy calling out to him to save her. He became very impatient and said, "There is no cultivation level, it's just a soul fragment. If you're not going to save her, I'll do it myself." Su Ligua didn't even realize that after seeing the wheel, his fear of Wang Lin disappeared and his tone unconsciously changed. Wang Lin's eyes faintly lit up and he smiled. "Don't rush. I'll release the soul for you now." With that, Wang Lin's hand formed a seal and shot out a ray of spiritual energy into the wheel. However, the treasure wheel released a green glow and quickly dissolved the ray of spiritual energy. Wang Lin let out a surprised sound and then looked more closely at the treasure wheel. Before, nothing about the wheel had caught his attention, but now that it was able to emit a green glow that neutralized his spiritual energy, it had his full attention. When the green light lit up, Wang Lin felt no spiritual energy fluctuations from the wheel. He pondered a bit before sending out another ray of spiritual energy. His eyes remained calm. A strange symbol the size of a thumbnail quickly appeared then disappeared. The green glow then appeared once more to dissolve the spiritual energy. Interesting. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Su Ligua had reached his limit. Without a word, he charged out from the celestial sword toward the treasure wheel. Wang Lin shot Su Ligua a cold look. Su Ligua's actions were too strange. There was something off. He noticed that the moment Su Ligua got close to the treasure wheel, the strange symbol appeared once more. The green glow appeared again and then Su Ligua let out a miserable groan as he was knocked back 10 feet. His eyes were bloodshot. He let out a roar and was about to try again when Wang Lin pointed at him and locked him in mid-air. Su Ligua turned around toward Wang Lin and shouted, "What are you doing? Let me go. I'm going to release her." Wang Lin coldly looked at Su Ligua. Su Ligua's body trembled and seemed to regain a trace of clarity. He looked terrifyingly at the treasure wheel and said, Master, please don't blame me. Every time I see the treasure wheel, I become unable to control myself." Wang Lin ignored Su Ligua and then grabbed the treasure wheel. His left thumb pressed down on where the strange symbol was. The moment he did so, The strange symbol appeared and began to rapidly flash as the wheel released a green glow. Wang Lin let out a groan, but he kept on pressing down like he was breaking through countless barriers until he directly touched the treasure wheel. Then, along with a series of crackling sounds, countless cracks appeared and covered the treasure wheel. With a bang, the treasure wheel shattered into pieces. In an instant, a blinding red light charged out from the shattered wheel. A crisp laughter that was filled with enough demonic power to shake anyone's heart came from the red light. This sound was filled with a mysterious power. The power that was holding Su Ligua in place seemed to have melted like ice that had met the blazing sun. Soon, Su Ligua regained his freedom. His eyes were filled with desire as he quickly flew toward the red light. The red light turned into a very enchanting woman. She was only wearing a thin layer of clothing that revealed a lot of skin. She glanced at Su Ligua and smiled. "Elder brother Su, little sister has waited for a long time. Why did you only save me now?" With that, she raised her delicate hand and pointed at Su Ligua. Her expression made it look like she was flirting with her lover. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. When the woman appeared, even his heart was affected. Luckily, he had cultivated the soul-sealing technique, which linked his soul to the 1 billion soul flag, allowing him to quickly recover. But just this caused him to be shocked. If he was distracted like that during a fight, he would be put in a dire position. "You dare to use such a demonic technique before me?" Wang Lin let out a cold snort. This sound entered Su Ligua and the woman's ears and echoed like thunder. Su Ligua's body trembled and his eyes immediately became clear. He was already a devil, so after being called out twice by Wang Lin, he realized what was wrong. Terrified, he quickly backed up. The woman turned around and stared at Wang for a bit before letting out a beautiful smile. At this moment, everything else dimmed and her smile was the only thing remaining. The woman's eyelashes slightly trembled and she whispered, as if she were complaining, "What a vicious person. It's not like I meant to offend you." Her voice contained a mysterious power. When it landed in Wang Lin's ears, his heart trembled once more. Su Ligua's body trembled and the clarity in his eyes disappeared only to be filled with desire once more. The woman let out a proud smile and flew toward Wang Lin. She arrived before him and reached for his forehead. However, just at this moment, Wang Lin's eyes became clear and there was a hint of disdain in them. The woman exclaimed. She realized that something was wrong and tried to back away. However, Wang Lin took out the soul flag and along with Li Yuanfeng, over 1,000 soul fragments charged out. The woman exclaimed once more and backed up without any hesitation. Li Yuanfeng's soul fragment quickly charged out and surrounded the woman with the other soul fragments. Just as they were about to devour her, a mysterious power came from her eyes and she smiled. "Big brothers, why must you all be like this? I'm not your enemy." With just one sound, even Li Yuanfeng's soul fragment was startled and his eyes filled with confusion. The other soul fragments looked even worse as they stared dumbfoundedly at the woman. "He bullied me. Help me kill him, please. After killing him, I'll spend some time with you all." The woman's cheeks blushed. With that, Li Yuanfeng's soul fragment trembled and along with the other soul fragments charged toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression remained calm. He didn't even look at the soul fragments and pointed behind him. Su Ligua had also fallen under the woman's lure, and was about to sneak attack Wang Lin but was injured before he could. The black gas around him quickly dissipated and he quickly backed away. His eyes regained their clarity. This time it was his fear of Wang Lin that won over the woman's charm. He secretly cursed in his heart. Why did he attack this fiend? Great, now all the credit he had earned from killing the giant demon clan ancestor was gone. The more Su Ligua thought about it, the more angry he became, so he shouted at the woman, "Wretch, it's all your fault for charming me." She revealed a sad expression and was about to speak when Li Yuanfeng's soul fragment along with the other soul fragments arrived before Wang Lin. Wang Lin pointed with his right hand and all the soul fragments let out miserable groans. Along with Li Yuanfeng's soul fragment, all of them scattered. "Enough! You come here!" Wang Lin reached out. The woman exclaimed and tried to dodge, but she was caught by Wang Lin and brought before him. After carefully looking at the woman, he was able to see through her secret. Inside the soul fragment was a domain. This domain was very strong and could charm a myriad of things in the world. A soul fragment with a domain. Interesting. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. What is your name? The woman struggled for a long time. She was breathing hard as she charmingly said, I didn't even offend you. Why aren't you letting go? Her charming breathing carried a hint of her charm. Wang Lin coldly looked at the woman and pointed at her brow. She revealed a painful expression and soon began to scream. Strands of black gas came out from her body as if she could dissipate at any moment. Meiji, my name is Meiji, the woman quickly said, as she looked at Wang Lin with terror in her eyes. After she gained sentience, everyone she had met was charmed by her. Even the giant demon clan ancestor was charmed. Although he managed to break free from her in the end, he was never able to do anything malicious to her, so he only sealed her away. After she was sealed, she was still looking for a way to escape the giant demon clan ancestor. One day she met Su Ligua. She easily charmed Su Ligua and he did good by finally saving her. However, she never would have imagined that there would be a man like this. Not only was all her charm useless against him, but he could even bear to harm her. What is the matter with that domain in your body? Wang Lin wasn't affected by her charm because of his life experience and his cultivation of the soul sealing technique. In his 500 years of cultivation, Wang Lin had never been with a woman, so his heart was much more determined than the giant demon clan ancestors. At the same time, the soul sealing technique was the most revered technique in the soul refining sect. Aside from controlling the 1 billion soul flag, its other use was to make it impossible for his soul to be affected by anything. It was because of this that he could control the 1 billion soul fragments and not suffer the backlash. The woman looked at Wang Lin in terror. No longer daring to use her domain, she said, I don't know how it came to be. When I woke up, the domain was already there. Wang Lin pondered a bit. This woman's cultivation level was only at the core formation stage, but her domain was powerful enough to affect someone like Li Yuanfeng. This made matters very strange. This woman must have been formed when a part of a powerful senior's origin soul split off. The result was this soul fragment. That would explain why it has such a powerful domain. This domain should be related to charm or lust. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. His hand formed a seal to place a restriction on the woman, and then he put her inside the soul flag. Su Ligua immediately let out a smile and carefully said, Master this, if there is nothing else, I'll head back first. With that, he went back into the celestial sword and didn't dare to come out. Wang Lin found it very funny and no longer bothered with Su Ligua. He slapped his bag of holding, causing the pagoda to fly out and become large next to him. Zhou Yi's domain immediately spread out and surround everything within 50 kilometers. The moment the pagoda appeared, Zhou Ru quickly ran out. After seeing Wang Lin, she immediately pouted and said, Bad uncle, you are a bad uncle. I don't like you anymore. Little White came out next to Zhou Ru with his head down and lied down next to her. Although it was hard to notice because he was covered in fur, it wouldn't be wrong to describe him as completely famished. I'm a demonic tiger, yet I had to eat fruit for months. Not only that, but I couldn't eat my fill and only ate 1 fruit a day. I couldn't even smell any meat. How sad. Little White let out a pitiful growl and tears almost fell from his eyes. There were several occasions where he wanted to eat Zhou Ru, but he couldn't help but think of how Wang Lin would deal with him if he did, so he gave up on the idea. More importantly, as time passed, he could feel a terrifying power slowly growing inside Zhou Ru. He was worried that before he even started eating her, this little brat would eat him instead. Bad uncle, look at how thin Little White is. We had to eat fruit for months. She looked at Wang Lin with eyes filled with dissatisfaction. Not just Little White, but even she herself had gotten a lot thinner. Wang Lin rubbed his nose. He had indeed forgotten about this matter. After all, he hadn't needed to eat in 400 years, so he forgot that Zhou Ru still needed food. Luckily, when he sent Zhou Ru into the pagoda, he gave her a lot of spirit fruits as snacks. Also, the celestial spiritual energy inside the tower was very thick. As long as one didn't directly absorb it, it could still make them not need to eat. Wang Lin's forehead was covered in sweat. Even when he faced soul transformation old monsters, he didn't feel this awkward or embarrassed. After hearing Zhou Ru's words, he could only bitterly smile. This is uncle's fault. I definitely won't forget next time, Wang Lin quickly promised. Zhou Ru rolled her eyes and pouted. Uncle's promises never count. Last time you promised me a big tiger and that never came true. I won't believe you this time. Wang Lin wryly smiled. Okay, little Zhou, Uncle will bring you to catch a big tiger. I think that there should be some demonic beasts here. Zhou was a child after all, so when she heard this, she immediately smiled and clapped her hands. Uncle has to keep his promise this time. Let us go right now. Wang Lin revealed a gentle look as he rubbed Zhou's head and smiled. Let's go now. Zhou quickly nodded. She pondered for a bit and then said, Uncle, I don't know why, but every day I would dream. In my dreams, I would see a big sister with you. That big sister looked very familiar. So strange. Wang Lin's heart trembled. He lowered his head and looked at Zhou. After a while, he let out a sigh and looked into the sky. Wan Air, only 6 more years and you can awaken. Zhou looked at Wang Lin and then a faint and undetectable trace of fear appeared in her eyes. Zhou whispered, Uncle, little Ru Air is a monster. Little White was lying on the side. When he heard this, he quickly nodded and thought, Indeed, you are a little monster. How else would a demonic tiger such as myself be bullied by you? I was forced to leave the mountain and leave behind all my female tigers. Alas. Wang Lin was startled. He looked down and rubbed Zhou's head as he whispered, Little Ru Air, what's wrong? Tears fell from Zhou's eyes as she began to cry. Little Ru Air is a monster. Uncle, little Ru Air is a monster. In fact, about a year ago, I could feel a little person inside me. Uncle, I'm scared. Wang Lin stared at Zhou. He wasn't able to say anything for a very long time before he finally said, Little Ru Air isn't a monster, she isn't. Zhou jumped into Wang Lin's embrace. She grabbed onto his clothes and said, Uncle, I can feel that the little person in my body is like the big sister in my dream. She is that little person. Uncle, little Ru Air is scared. Can you take her out? Her little hand firmly gripped Wang Lin's clothes as if Wang Lin would disappear. She let go. She was scared. And this was the only way for her to feel safe. Wang Lin's body trembled. At this moment he felt like he had been struck by lightning. Why did it turn out like this? Wang Lin muttered to himself, as his eyes were filled with complex emotions. Back then, Li Muan's nascent soul was placed into the pregnant woman by Wang Lin. This was a type of possession, but the baby had no soul yet and was only a mass of flesh. In principle, Li Muan was Zhou and Zhou was Li Muan, so why was this situation of Zhou rejecting Li Muan happening? Could it be that when Li Muan's nascent soul entered the pregnant lady's stomach, the baby had already developed its own soul? Wang Lin's body trembled. He was fighting the Heaven's Messenger back then, so he wasn't able to take a closer look. If this is true, then Li Muan's nascent soul will slowly devour Zhou's soul, and she will completely replace Zhou as the owner of the body when she wakes up. Wang Lin's eyes were filled with confusion. Zhou raised her head. Her eyes were filled with tears as she whispered, Uncle, little Ru Air is scared. Can you quickly take her out, please? Did I do the wrong thing? Wang Lin looked at Zhou. He felt pain in his heart. Little Ru Air, don't be scared. Just pretend that the little person inside you is your big sister. Don't worry. Wang Lin smiled while watching Zhou. His smile was filled with complex emotions. Really? Uncle isn't lying to me. Zhou's big eyes revealed naivety, purity, and innocence. In addition, Wang Lin could also see a deep sense of attachment and trust in her eyes. Really? The pain in Wang Lin's heart intensified. Wang Lin knew the choice he had to make, but in life, choosing one life sometimes means giving up another. Why it is like this? Wang Lin's eyes were filled with pain. Although Zhou was little, she was a very sensitive person. She looked at Wang Lin before burying her little head in his chest and said, Uncle, don't feel bad. When Uncle feels bad, I feel bad as well. In the future, I won't talk about this matter. I believe that if Uncle says it's not a problem, then it's not a problem. Uncle, weren't you going to take me to catch a big tiger? Wang Lin looked at Zhou. He nodded as he wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and said, Uncle will take you to catch a big tiger. With that, he hugged Zhou and flew into the air. Zhou smiled, but this smile was like a silent cry in Wang Lin's eyes. Uncle, bring Little White. Humph, Little White has been naughty. Once Uncle catches me a big tiger, I'll see if Little White continues to be naughty. If he continues, I'll have the big tiger bite Little White. Little White's body trembled as he let out a pitiful cry and thought, I'm a demonic tiger. Before he could finish, He was grabbed by Wang Lin and disappeared along with them. As they flew, Zhouru's eyes were still on Wang Lin. She held back her tears and thought silently in her heart. Uncle, little Ru Air is already 13 years old. There are some things I already understand. You are different from Grandpa XIAN. When you look at me, you aren't looking at me but at the little person inside me. Grandpa XIAN wasn't the same. What he looked at was me. I know that when you saved me from that bad cultivator, it wasn't for me but for the big sister inside me. The big sister I saw in my dreams is very pretty, but I believe that when I grow up I'll be even prettier, so uncle, don't leave me. There wasn't much vegetation on this moon, but there were a lot of mountains. There were no mortals on this planet and there were very few cultivators. After all, there weren't many cultivators who could break through the planet's atmosphere. They would have to be at least at the soul transformation stage to do so. Even then, they would still need a star compass or they would find it very hard to navigate their way through the void. Wang Lin carried Zhouru and Little White as they flew across the sky. There were many large mountains under them, causing Zhouru to often exclaim out loud. At a forest in the northern part of the moon, Wang Lin caught Zhouru a big tiger. This tiger was completely purple and 30 feet long. It gave off a very oppressive aura. However, what Wang Lin found very weird was that this tiger had no intelligence. It was far from being as smart as Little White, but there was a mysterious force inside it. With one roar it could send the sand around it flying, and with one pounce it could break metal. Its power wasn't much weaker than a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators. Wang Lin easily dealt with the tiger. He left an imprint on the tiger's soul, making Zhouru its master. After it couldn't possibly turn on Zhouru, Wang Lin gave it to her as a gift. Zhouru's love for this tiger immediately reached the same level as her love for Little White. In the future, let's call you Little Violet, Zhouru said, as she sat on Little Violet's back and happily clapped her hands. Little White was beside them with his head down. He felt disdain toward the purple tiger. He was a proper demonic tiger. How could this lump compare to him? Thinking about this, he lazily roared at the purple tiger. However, he didn't think that the purple tiger would turn its head toward him and let out a roar in retaliation. This roar was filled with power. It was as if it could shatter the heavens. Little White howled as every hair on his body stood up and he backed up dozens of feet. He stared at the purple tiger in fear and no longer dared to move up. This made Zhouru clap her hands in joy. She said, "Little White, you can't beat Little Violet." Wang Lin watched Zhouru's happy face and began to ponder. Strictly speaking, Wang Lin didn't care too much about Zhouru. At most he felt like a parent watching their child after spending so much time with her. The only thing he cared about in the end was Li Muan. The day Li Muan's nascent soul wakes up is the day Zhouru's soul will be devoured. There was no chance for both of them to survive. If he were to take out Li Muan's nascent soul early, it would save Zhouru, but that would make it almost impossible for Li Muan to escape death. After all, Li Muan's nascent soul was in a deep slumber and was still recovering. If it were taken out now, it would disappear. Wang Lin understood who was more important in his heart. There was no hesitation there. However, to sacrifice this child's life just for his own selfish desire for Li Muan to awaken caused Wang Lin's heart to struggle. Although he had killed countless people in his life, he was able to face himself and the heavens after he killed them. Although he was a demon, he wasn't a demon that lost had its humanity. Spring passed and autumn came. In the blink of an eye, 2 years passed. Zhouru was now 15 years old. There were still 4 years until Li Muan awakens. In these past 2 years, Zhouru slowly grew and bloomed into a lovely girl. The amount of times Li Muan appeared in her dreams greatly increased. Wang Lin spent these past 2 years cultivating. Throughout this time, the bitterness in his heart became stronger and stronger. Choosing Li Muan was a must. However, how he would ensure this child's life when Li Muan awakened was a question he was still mulling over. Zhouru became more and more quiet in these past 2 years. She would often sit on Little Violet's back with Little White behind them and stare at the sky. Zhouru whispered, "Little White, I can feel the big sister inside me slowly awaken. When she finally wakes up, I'll be gone. After I'm gone, you must be good, Little White. I'll ask Uncle to take you back home. Little White, after I leave, will you think of me?" Little White raised his head to look at Zhouru. His eyes were filled with complex feelings. Although Zhou would often bully him, in truth, he could feel that Zhou really loved him. When little Violet would bully him, Zhou would side with him and scold little Violet. Little White kept all of this in his heart. Although he was a demonic tiger, his heart felt bitter as he looked at Zhou and nodded his big head. Zhou faintly smiled. She jumped off little Violet and arrived next to little White. She rubbed his fur and said, "Little White, after I'm gone, do you think Uncle will think of me?" Little White let out a soft growl and looked at Zhou. Zhou rubbed little White's fur and felt depressed. She looked at the figure sitting on the mountain in the distance and quietly, though in her heart, "Uncle, little Air understands. Even now, whenever you look at me, you are looking at the big sister and not at me. She must be very important to you. Little Air knows what to do." Zhou's eyes became watery as she looked over at the big and dumb little Violet and whispered, "Little Violet, once I'm gone, you will be free." Wang Lin was sitting at the top of the mountain. Although he looked like he was cultivating, he was actually just staring at the sky. Wang Lin pondered, "The heavens will. I, Wang Lin, have always resisted the heavens will, but I was still played by it this time." Zhou's call came from below. "Uncle, uncle, can you come down?" Wang Lin lowered his head and looked at Zhou with a complex expression. He jumped off the mountain and landed next to her. "Uncle, sit down. Little Air wants to brush your hair." Zhou revealed an innocent smile. She was holding a wooden brush that XIAN had gifted her. She didn't wait for Wang Lin to answer before she dragged him to a big rock. After having Wang Lin sit down, she went behind him and began to carefully brush his hair. Her expression was very serious. After a while she said, "Uncle, can you tell little Air stories of you and big sister?" Wang Lin pondered. After a long time he slowly nodded. A story came from his mouth and landed in Zhou's ears. She brushed his hair as she listened, and her body would occasionally tremble as if she had understood something. Zhou put down the wooden brush and whispered, "Uncle, if I die early, does that mean big sister Air won't be able to wake up?" Wang Lin turned around to look at Zhou. What he saw was a hint of unfamiliarity in her. Zhou raised her head to look at Wang Lin. Her eyes were filled with sadness as she whispered, "Uncle, in your eyes, is little Air only a body for big sister Air to wake up in? Ever since I was small, I considered you my family, my uncle. When you look at me, I want you to see the real me and not big sister Air, even if only once." Wang Lin looked at Zhou. After pondering for a bit, he said, "Little Air, you are tired. Go rest." With that, he turned around and disappeared. The wooden brush in Zhou's hand fell to the ground. She squatted down on the ground and began to cry. 2 streams of tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. While Zhou cried, she muttered, "Uncle, I'm scared." Wang Lin's figure appeared in the distance and slightly trembled. The complex emotions in his eyes became even stronger. Air, if it was you, how would you choose? Little White went missing. He went missing without a sound, but Wang Lin saw that he had quietly left in the middle of the night. Zhou became very sad over Little White leaving and became very sick. While she slept due to her illness, she could often call out to Little White. Although she often bullied Little White, he held a very important place in her heart. Although she had Little Violet now, Little White was still very important to her. Little White was her friend, her only friend. However, when Wang Lin was going to get Little White back, she stopped him. She begged Wang Lin and whispered, "If Little White wants to leave, it is his choice. He should have the right to choose. He is more fortunate than little Zhou. Don't go looking for him." Wang Lin's heart felt very painful as he walked away in silence. He thought about what to do 4 years from now to save both of them and came up with a plan. "Uncle doesn't want me anymore. Little White, you also left." 1 month later, Zhou's illness had gotten better, but she was even quieter than before and would often be in a daze looking into the distance. On one morning 2 months later, a tired but excited roar could be heard. Little White appeared in Zhou's vision, and with a few jumps arrived next to her. In his mouth was a fire-red tree branch with a fruit attached to it. Little White returned. Zhou looked at Little White. She was very happy and angry at the same time. "Little White, you didn't abandon me." "Little White." Zhou hugged Little White. As tears rolled down her cheeks, she revealed a happy smile. Little White was skinnier now and his fur was no longer neat. There were clear signs of injuries on his body, and he was no longer as fierce. Instead, he looked very tired. There was even a deep wound on his stomach. Although that wound was already sealed, there was still some blood on his fur. Little White put down the branch on the ground and licked Zhou Ru. Then he carefully looked around to make sure that Wang Lin wasn't around. He pulled Zhou Ru's clothes and then touched the fruit on the ground. "Little White, what are you?" Zhou Ru was startled as she picked up the fruit on the ground. Little White looked around and became very anxious. He let out a few growls, telling Zhou Ru to quickly eat it. "Little White, you want me to eat this?" Zhou Ru had been with Little White for a long time, so she was able to immediately tell what he meant. Little White quickly nodded and his eyes were anxious again. Zhou Ru picked up the fruit and whispered, "Little White, what fruit is this?" Wang Lin's voice floated in from the distance. He said, "That is a nascent soul-shattering fruit." All the hair on Little White's body stood straight up. He quickly jumped to block Zhou Ru from Wang Lin and began to growl. Wang Lin slowly walked over from where he was. He immediately noticed when Little White returned and saw the fruit he was carrying. "What a good demonic tiger, sacrificing yourself for your master." Wang Lin looked at Little White. Fear appeared in Little White's eyes, but he still stood before Zhou Ru and growled. Zhou Ru rubbed Little White's fur and asked, "Uncle, what is a nascent soul-shattering fruit?" Wang Lin slowly said, "After you eat the fruit, although one heir who is inside you won't die, she will become very weak." Zhou Ru was startled. She lowered her head to look at Little White and whispered, "Little White, so you went to look for this fruit for me when you left." She let out a sigh and threw the fruit to the side. The fruit rolled a few times before falling down a cliff. Zhou Ru raised her head and looked at Wang Lin. "Uncle, don't hurt Little White, okay?" Wang Lin looked at Zhou Ru. He nodded and then left. Zhou Ru bit her lower lip as she looked at Wang Lin's back. That figure was so unfamiliar. Zhou Ru exclaimed, "Uncle, you can relax. Zhou Ru knows what to do to allow you and big sister Wan heir to reunite." Wang Lin's body paused. He pondered a bit before continuing to walk away. Another 2 years quickly passed by. On this day, a thick mass of black fog erupted from the giant hole that led to the immortal graveyard. This black fog pierced into the sky. The fog turned into a very strange plant with very large leaves. There were countless tattoos on the plant and it gave off a strange aura. Just at this moment, a golden light appeared in the sky. Inside the golden light were the illusions of 5 glowing flying swords. The moment the golden light appeared, it turned into a net and covered the plant. After a series of rumbling sounds, it forcibly suppressed the plant. "My clan has been hiding for tens of thousands of years, but today no one will stop my clan from taking back planet Fu-1," an ancient voice said, from deep within the immortal graveyard. And then a very ancient-looking old man walked out from the hole. There weren't any tattoos on the old man's body, but if one looked closely, there was a plant flashing on his forehead. Upon closer inspection, there were 11 leaves on that plant. No, after another closer look, there was another leaf under the 11 leaves. Although it was not completely open, it was opened of the way. The moment the old man walked out from the hole, the 5 swords in the sky all hummed in unison. 2 of the swords left the golden net and charged toward the old man. The old man's expression was calm as he whispered, "The country of Suzaku's first-generation Suzaku sacrificed himself along with 9 mid-stage ascendant cultivators to create these 5 swords to seal my forsaken immortal clan for tens of thousands of years. Today I can do the same thing by sacrificing myself to free my forsaken immortal clan. Absorb. He pointed forward with his right hand and a giant tattoo appeared before him. This tattoo let out a primal aura and immediately began to spread. Those two flying swords began to tremble. Then they managed to break free from the power of the tattoo and quickly backed away. Return. The old man's eyes were calm. It was as if he had seen through everything. He waved his right hand and then a heaven-shattering roar came from the sky. Countless tattoos appeared in the air soon after. They interlocked with each other to create a tattoo that looked like it could split the heavens. The two flying swords stopped struggling and flew toward the old man like lightning. Bang! Bang! Two bangs that echoed across the entire planet could be heard as the two swords stabbed into the old man's chest. They were struggling to escape but couldn't. Back then, this old man was but a coward who had to watch countless clan members die. Although I lived, my heart died back then. The old man pointed at the golden net in the sky. Two more flying swords quickly flew toward him. Although they struggled, it was to avail. They were controlled by the old man to stab into his chest as well. It has been tens of thousands of years and I was originally supposed to be dead, but my clan regarded me as their founding ancestor. They fed me my own clan's tattoos to keep me alive. I survived on the lives of my own clan members. I'm a sinner of my clan. The old man looked at the last flying sword in the golden net. He took a deep breath and reached out. Then the final golden sword suddenly began to struggle. But it seemed like the golden sword didn't have enough power to resist. After a while, it charged out from the golden net and stabbed toward the old man. This old man is a sinner of the forsaken immortal clan who deserves to die. Today this old man broke through the 11 leaves stage and my 12th leaf has started to open, placing me a level above what the cultivators call ascendant. However, this old man's talent is limited, so I wasn't able to fully absorb the power to truly take that last step. I'm a disgrace to the ancestors and I'm not worthy of all the clan members who died to keep me alive. The last flying sword rushed over and stabbed the old man right between the eyes. The old man's eyes slowly dimmed. This old man is a sinner, but my death will allow my clan to return to the surface. Allow me to be sealed in place of the forsaken immortal tree. With my soul as a sacrifice, my clan can reappear. At that moment, the light in the old man's eyes went out and his hands reached out to tear open the sky. A sound that reverberated through the entire planet could be heard as the golden net was split in half. The giant plant that was suppressed by the golden net immediately charged out and became like a pillar holding up the heavens. At the same time, the countless tattoos surrounding the area shattered and disappeared. The old man's body slowly merged with the giant plant and disappeared. At this moment, the forsaken immortal clan members came out of the hole one by one. More and more of them came out and every single one of them bowed deeply toward the plant. Among those forsaken immortal clan members was a woman who was wearing a veil. Her eyes underneath the veil were calm. I hope you aren't lying to me. I want that XIAN Feng to die without a grave. 50 kilometers away, a burly man wearing a straw hat looked at the giant plant and muttered, I hope you didn't lie to me. I want the four-sect alliance to return. Kill. A roar that could pierce the heavens came from the immortal graveyard. This wasn't a roar from one person but from all the forsaken immortal clan members. This roar traveled through the high heavens and echoed across the land. At this moment, an angry roar came from the cave XIAN was cultivating in at the top of Mount Suzaku. The roar caused the cave to explode, leaving behind only dust. XIAN, who was wearing a red robe, appeared from the void. He looked at the direction of the immortal graveyard with a very ugly expression. Damn remnants of the forsaken immortal clan. You guys are courting death. XIAN reached out and all the clouds seemed to gather in his hand. Soon, a white token formed from the clouds appeared in his palm. He slapped it with his left hand and the token split into 2, then to 4 and so on. I'm calling all cultivation countries as the 14th generation Suzaku. The second war with the forsaken immortal clan begins. The cloud tokens quickly disappeared. Then the old man walked out of his long years of closed-door cultivation in the heavenly jade sect in the country of Suzaku. He was wearing a black robe and was very skinny, but his eyes lit up as he looked toward the immortal graveyard. He whispered, "Things are changing." This old man was the early-stage ascendant ancestor that the entire heavenly jade sect respected, Chu Yunfei. The Earth Soul sect was in eastern side of Suzaku. There was a cave deep underground below the sect, and inside it sat a middle-aged man. At this moment, this man suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes gave off an ancient feel as he sighed. This day has finally come. I can't believe I got caught up in this, The final sect in Suzaku was the Immortal's Path sect. However, there was no commotion here. The ascendant ancestor of the Immortal's Path sect was very mysterious. Very few people knew of his whereabouts or even what he looked like. Pilu's soul refining sect. Tian opened his eyes and sneered before closing them once more. This calamity on planet Suzaku had nothing to do with Wang Lin. He was only focused on facing the second arrival of the Heaven's Messenger so Li Muwen could be reborn. There were 2 years left until Li Muwen's awakening. In these 2 years, Zhou Ru spent most of her time in silence. It was as if there was already a huge barrier between her and Wang Lin. Wang Lin could feel Li Muwen's nascent soul slowly awakening in her body, and Zhou Ru's life force slowly disappearing. When her life force completely disappears, Li Muwen will have completely devoured Zhou Ru's soul. However, the speed at which Li Muwen's nascent soul was growing had slowed down over the last year. It was as if it wasn't willing to grow. It wasn't willing to devour Zhou Ru's soul. Wang Lin knew that it was because Li Muwen had recovered some of her consciousness. She wasn't willing to sacrifice a child to allow herself to reawaken. This was her choice, and it was not Wang Lin's decision to make. He used his spiritual energy to stop her, allowing her nascent soul to continue to grow inside Zhou Ru. One heir, I know you aren't willing to devour this child. Believe in me, I'll do this properly and not harm her at all. Once you have awakened, we can send her back to her parents. What I want is your nascent soul, not this child's body. This was Wang Lin's promise to Li Muwen. Wang Lin lied to Li Muwen. He couldn't think of a way to protect Li Muwen and also make sure Zhou Ru's soul remained intact. If he were to pull out Zhou Ru's soul in advance, the death aura created at that moment would be very harmful to Li Muwen's nascent soul. Even if her nascent soul could withstand it, it would be seriously injured and would most likely shatter soon after. This was still secondary though. The moment Zhou Ru's soul is removed, the Heaven's Messenger will descend. Without Zhou Ru's soul to mask Li Muwen's nascent soul, Li Muwen will be exposed before the heavens. At that moment, Li Muwen's nascent soul won't be fully recovered, so the Heaven's law will still affect her greatly. The original plan wasn't like this. Li Muwen's nascent soul was supposed to fuse with the baby's flesh. Doing this would make it so that her soul would belong to the baby, allowing her to effectively dodge the Heaven's law. But right now everything had changed. Aside from Li Muwen devouring Zhou Ru's soul, nothing else could resolve this change. This answer was the dead end Wang Lin had reached after 4 years of struggling. There was no doubt in his heart when he thought about who was more important. He had already decided to sacrifice Zhou Ru to allow Li Muwen to awaken. This choice was very cruel and was very painful for Wang Lin as well. However, Wang Lin was an old monster who had cultivated for 500 years. After 4 years of struggling, his heart was as hard as steel. Wang Lin looked at Zhou Ru, who was silently pondering on a rock in the distance, and thought to himself, Zhou Ru, I will not forget this kindness. I'll make sure your family lives in prosperity for 10 generations. They will rule over Chu. As if she had heard Wang Lin, her body trembled as she turned toward him. Tears appeared at the corners of her eyes, but there was a big smile on her face. These last 2 years slowly went by day by day. The day at which the Heaven's Messenger will arrive was getting closer. After arriving at the moon, Wang Lin had never gone back to Suzaku, so he naturally didn't know about the big changes that were taking place in the country of Suzaku. The current country of Suzaku could be said to be covered in the flames of war. The Forsaken Immortal clan had moved out with 4 9-leaf shamans, which were equal in power to ascendant cultivators, and began a back-and-forth war with the country of Suzaku. At the same time, one shocking piece of news after another echoed across planet Suzaku. Most of the news contained the word betrayal. Various figureheads of cultivation countries and ancestors of sects betrayed the country of Suzaku. Due to many of these betrayals at key points of battles, the country of Suzaku was forced to retreat many times. Now a rumor was spreading across planet Suzaku. Countless years ago, the Forsaken Immortal clan came up with a technique. By sacrificing a large number of clan members, they could turn a clan member into a cultivator. In these countless years, the Forsaken Immortal clan converted 9 different people. Because they didn't have the bodies of Forsaken Immortal clan members, they weren't restricted by the seal, so they went out and joined various sects. This was the strongest card the Forsaken Immortal clan had for this war. The moon was currently countless times quieter than planet Suzaku. There were only 3 more months until the fated day. Zhou hadn't spoken for an entire year. The time she spent sleeping had increased greatly. Now she was sleeping for a majority of the day. Little White still stayed by her side. The sadness in his eyes deepened more each day. As for Little Violet, he didn't understand anything, so he just lied on the ground and looked at Zhou and Little White in confusion. Wang Lin's divine sense was always locked onto Zhou to keep an eye on Li Muan's nascent soul. He also kept his body at peak condition so he could deal with the Heaven's Messenger at any moment. The original body was doing the same deep in the molten core of the moon. He couldn't allow himself to lose this battle against the Heaven's Messenger. While Zhou was sleeping, she would sometimes sleep talk. She would still say, "Uncle, I'm scared." But these words became less and less frequent. Most of the time she was muttering something too jumbled to make out. Whenever she spoke like this, tears would come out of her eyes. The 19-year-old Zhou had grown up. Although she wasn't an exquisite beauty, she had a sense of innocence and purity. Zhou spent the whole final month sleeping. She didn't wake up even once this month. Li Muan's nascent soul had begun to devour her. Little White and Little Violet had been sealed away by Wang Lin to prevent them from messing with Li Muan's awakening. He was currently beside Zhou. His heart felt pain as he looked at the little girl. "Uncle, who are you?" "Uncle, thank you for saving me." "Uncle, you promised to catch me a big tiger." "Uncle, I'm scared. Can you take away the little person inside me?" His memories of Zhou flashed across his mind. After a while, Wang Lin let out a long sigh. Time slowly passed by and the last month slowly came to its end. The final day had finally arrived. Wang Lin could feel Li Muan's nascent soul awaken. She was currently devouring Zhou's soul. Gray clouds suddenly appeared in the sky above the moon. The moment they appeared, they began to gather. Inside the clouds, a pair of eyes appeared. Wang Lin was very familiar with this pair of eyes. The Heaven's Messenger from 19 years ago descended once more. That gaze swept past Wang Lin and landed on Zhou. The pair of eyes glowed as a giant hand reached out toward her. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Without any hesitation, he jumped into the air and pointed at the giant hand. At this moment, the life and death scroll appeared in the sky. Wang Lin shouted, "Scram!" Thick strands of gray gas came out of the life and death scroll and gathered before Wang Lin. The giant hand from the Heaven's Messenger arrived and collided with the gray gas. Boom! An earth-shattering sound echoed across the area as the gray gas from the life and death scroll was pushed apart, and the giant hand bounced back. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. After sending out a message with his mind, the ground began to crack open. His original body charged out of the ground, went after the giant hand, and punched it hard. Boom! Another earth-shattering sound echoed across the area. The sky split open and the earth shattered. The retreating hand was completely shattered by the original body's punch. Wang Lin's eyes were like lightning. He said in a deep voice, "This time you still won't be able to take away Li Muan's soul." The pair of eyes in the clouds didn't change at all, but this time 2 hands suddenly came down from the sky. There was red lightning crackling and popping all over the 2 hands. Wang Lin's eyes became serious. This time the Heaven's Messenger seemed to be prepared. The 2 giant hands quickly arrived. One reached toward Wang Lin and the other toward his original body. The original body let out a roar and immediately grew into a giant more than 100 feet tall. The 3 purple stars on its forehead began to rapidly spin as it threw out a punch. Bang! A powerful shockwave quickly spread out in the air. The original body was knocked back with red light all over its body. It then smashed into a mountain, causing the entire mountain to turn to dust. That giant arm was bounced back once more, but this time it didn't shatter. As for Wang Lin, when the arm came, his hand formed a seal and pointed at the giant hand. The life and death scroll in the sky suddenly closed and moved before him to block for him. The giant hand grabbed the scroll. It paused for a moment and then was about to withdraw with the scroll. Wang Lin's eyes were bloodshot as he shouted, "Shake!" The life and death scroll shook and a large amount of gray gas came out of it. Sizzling sounds came from the hand along with white gas. In the end, the giant hand had to let go of the scroll and withdraw. The pair of eyes ruthlessly looked at Zhou Ru, who was currently behind Wang Lin. The pair of giant hands ripped apart the clouds, revealing a giant face. This face looked extremely normal, but the moment one saw it, they would feel respect for it. This face represented the might of the heavens. He coldly stared at Wang Lin and opened his mouth. A strand of gray light suddenly flew out of his mouth and formed a wheel. The moment this wheel appeared, the sky changed colors and the earth shook. Countless cracks began to spread with Wang Lin as the center, and in the blink of an eye the land within 5,000 kilometers began to crack open. Countless spatial rifts appeared in the sky. These spatial rifts linked together, making it look as if the sky was going to fall. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy. With only a thought, his original body arrived and fused with him. The real Wang Lin appeared. The giant face didn't even look at Wang Lin. He moved his large hand toward the wheel and touched it. A mysterious sound came from the wheel, and then the entire area seemed to be surrounded by a powerful force. Wang Lin's expression changed. He was familiar with this power. It was the power of the reincarnation cycle. Just as his body was about to move, all of the surrounding reincarnation cycle power gathered and descended upon Wang Lin. At this moment, the power of the reincarnation cycle seemed to form a prison, and Wang Lin was trapped inside. He wasn't able to move his body even 1 inch. He couldn't even raise a single finger. After the giant hand finished messing with the wheel, it descended like lightning. Its target was Zhou Ru. Wang Lin wasn't able to move his body at all, but his heart screamed, "No!" He had worked hard for 19 years just for this moment, but now he could only watch as the giant hand was about to take Li Muan's nascent soul away. This moment, Wang Lin went crazy. He wasn't able to move his body, but his origin soul was still free. Although his origin soul couldn't leave his body, his domain still existed. The figure of a giant ancient god appeared in the sky and grabbed the life and death scroll. With one shake, the scroll opened completely. In an instant, a thick strand of gray gas came out of the life and death scroll. It didn't move toward the giant hand but fused with the figure of the ancient god. The ancient god figure trembled and an aura similar to the heaven's messengers appeared. It coldly looked at the heaven's messenger's arm before grabbing it and viciously pulling it back. The heaven's messenger that had only showed its face was dragged out from the void by the ancient god. A strange scene occurred in the sky as 2 giant figures appeared. Wang Lin's eyes were like lightning right now. When he saw the heaven's messenger, he was startled. The heaven's messenger's body was almost no different from an ancient god's body, but what shocked Wang Lin were the 7 shining stars on the messenger's head. However, 3 of the stars seemed to be sealed. They were much dimmer than the rest. When Wang Lin saw this, an unbelievable thought came to his mind. This is the real reincarnation cycle. When he first saw the heaven's messenger, he didn't question it, but after seeing it again, he suddenly thought, the reincarnation cycle is in law of the heavens. It should be ethereal. Why would a messenger exist? And this messenger was an ancient god. Everything he saw today was outside of Wang Lin's imagination. He questioned what exactly was the heaven's law. After the heaven's messenger was pulled, he opened his eyes for the first time and revealed an expression other than cold indifference. It was confusion. He stared at the figure of the ancient god before opening his mouth as if he wanted to speak, but in the end he closed it. His body moved and his giant hand quickly swung toward the ancient god formed by Wang Lin's domain. Boom! This sound echoed through the heavens and earth. Everything within 5,000 kilometers of here was already shattered, and now it was shattering even more. Wang Lin clearly saw the ground within 5,000 kilometers suddenly cave in, forming a giant hole. The only place that didn't collapse was the center of the hole where Zhou Ru was. Now it looked like Zhou Ru was on top of a tower. Zhou Ru's body was emitting a gentle white light. The ancient god formed by Wang Lin's domain was knocked back several steps by the heaven's messenger. Wang Lin's body trembled as blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. His origin soul was about to collapse. But he knew that if he couldn't withstand this, then Li Muan's nascent soul was going to die. The ancient god formed by Wang Lin's domain rushed forward and punched the heaven's messenger. Bang! 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 One punch after another caused the entire moon to shake and more blood to seep from his mouth. At this moment, the force holding Wang Lin weakened, so he grasped the opportunity and quickly let out a growl and broke free. Die! Wang Lin let out a roar as he jumped into the air and punched the Heaven's Messenger. A hint of confusion appeared in the Heaven's Messenger's eyes as he swung his right arm and sent Wang Lin flying like a meteor. However, Wang Lin's punch also landed and caused the Heaven's Messenger to stagger back several steps. The ancient god figure quickly took a few steps to catch up to the Heaven's Messenger and attacked once more. Wang Lin's body quickly returned. As he licked the blood from the corner of his lips, his eyes became filled with battle intent. He and the ancient god formed from his domain battled the Heaven's Messenger. The messenger kept on getting pushed back. Only 4 of the stars on his forehead were shining, meaning his current power was only that of a 4-star ancient god. You are not of my clan, the Heaven's Messenger talked for the first time. A normal cultivator wouldn't be able to understand him at all because he spoke in the ancient god's language. It was indeed as he said. Wang Lin at this moment couldn't be considered an ancient god. Ancient gods never had internal cultivation, and from ancient history to now no ancient god ever had a domain. It doesn't matter if I am or not. I won't agree to you taking Li Muan's nascent soul away. Wang Lin shouted back, in the ancient god's language as he threw a punch. The Heaven's Messenger was forced back once more. The ancient god figure quickly followed up on that attack. The white light surrounding Zhou Ru became stronger and stronger. A voice suddenly came from inside Zhou Ru. Wang Lin, you lied to me. This was a voice Wang Lin hadn't heard in 19 years. It belonged to Li Muan. Wang Lin's body trembled as he suddenly turned around. He was grief-stricken by what he saw. You. What he saw was the white light around Zhou Ru becoming as bright as it possibly could. Her soul was pushed out of her body, and then surrounded by the white light before gently landing on the side. Wang Lin, wants to see you and be with you, but I am supposed to be dead. It is simply too cruel to her if the price of me awakening is to devour her soul. I felt this child grow up over these past 19 years. Looking at her is like seeing my own child. Big brother Wang. I don't have the heart to do it. Is very dumb. I let you down. The moment Li Muan awakened, she stopped devouring Zhou Ru's soul, and used the power of her nascent soul to push Zhou Ru's soul out of her body. Without Zhou Ru's soul, her body was surrounded by a death aura. The moment Li Muan's nascent soul awakened, it was exposed to the Heaven's law. This caused it to slowly collapse. Wang Lin quickly arrived beside Zhou Ru's body and pointed at her brow. At that moment, Li Muan's nascent soul slowly flew out of Zhou Ru's body. She opened her eyes, looked at Wang Lin, and revealed the same gentle gaze from 19 years ago. Li Muan softly said, "Promise me to take good care of yourself." She raised her hand to feel Wang Lin's body temperature, but right when she was about to touch him, her hand became transparent. A trace of sadness appeared on her face. She looked at Wang Lin and whispered, "Zhou Ru is only a child. Don't make it difficult for her. This is my own choice." At this moment, the Heaven's Messenger moved past the ancient god figure and arrived beside Wang Lin. It reached out toward the wheel and messed with it. The power of the reincarnation cycle reappeared once more. A powerful suction force came from the wheel toward Li Muan. Wang Lin suddenly raised his head. His eyes became extremely cold as he said, "Without my permission, forget the fact that you aren't even the real Heaven's law. But even if you were, don't think you can take her away." He pointed at his brow and the heaven-defying bead appeared. With a wave of his hand, Li Muan's nascent soul went into the heaven-defying bead, and the heaven-defying bead went back inside his body. The Heaven's Messenger shot a thoughtful look at Wang Lin. His eyes were filled with confusion. Then his body slowly disappeared, and in the blink of an eye, the clouds and wheel also disappeared. Wang Lin stared at Zhou Ru's body and began to laugh like crazy. His laugh was filled with sadness and madness. I, Wang Lin, have fought against the heavens and twice fought against the reincarnation cycle, but I didn't expect to lose to the Heaven's will in the end. The Heaven's will. The Heaven's will is cruel. Wang Lin pointed at Zhou Ru's soul and placed it back inside her body. Then he jumped into the air as he laughed madly, leaving behind only echoes of his sad laughter. After Wang Lin left, Little White carefully flew over. He was originally sealed by Wang Lin, but during the battle with the Heaven's Messenger, the seal shattered, allowing him to escape. Only after he saw Wang Lin leave did he dare to come over. His eyes were filled with sadness as he licked Zhou Ru's small face. Zhou Ru muttered to herself, "Little White, stop messing around, I want to sleep." Little White was startled. He immediately let out a happy growl and then picked up Zhou Ru by her clothes and took her far away. A crazy person appeared on the moon. His hair was all over the place and he would often say the two words "Heaven's will." Whenever a beast blocked him, it would die. Heaven's will. I, Wang Lin, won against the Heaven's law but was played by the Heaven's will. A year later, on a rainy night at the eastern part of the moon, a crazy person stood on top of a tall mountain. The rain came crashing toward the ground. It landed on his body and flowed down his cheeks before falling to the ground. What is life? What is death? I, Wang Lin, have spent my life on the path of slaughter and comprehended the Heaven's law when I turned into a mortal. I saw life as life and death as death. This rain is born in the sky and dies when it hits the earth. Thanks to Senior Zhou Yi's obsession, the celestial female corpse awakened. The emotions between the two, how if he lives she dies and if he dies she lives. All of this allowed me to understand the meaning of seeing life not as life and seeing death not as death. Surviving through a disaster allowed me to see the changes in life. Zhou Ru tipping between life and death. One heirs death and life in death. It was the Heaven's will that finally allowed I, Wang Lin, to see life still as life and death still as death. After 19 years of time, one heir. Thank you for allowing me to understand. I should let things that are lost in the world stay lost, and those that still exist to remain existing. This rain was born in the sky but doesn't die when it hits the earth. On the earth it will gain new life. It will help plants grow and then it will turn into clouds once more. This changes life. I can't let go of my parents' soul and your departure. In truth, I wasn't filial to my parents, and to you I have always been neglectful. Although this emotion is real, it was more of a sense of duty because I was moved. Wang Lin's parents' souls flew out from his brow. They gently gazed at him as they slowly disappeared. They didn't die but entered a different realm of life. Little White, where is Uncle? Zhou Ru was sitting on Little White's back with a bunch of fruits in her hands. Little White shook his big head and let out a growl in response. Ever since Zhou Ru had woken up 1 year ago, she hadn't seen Wang Lin. Only Little White accompanied her. Little White was currently carrying Zhou Ru as they walked through a mountain range. At this moment, the ground suddenly began to tremble. Little White let out a low growl as he backed up a couple dozen feet. The ground began to shake even more violently, and then suddenly a life form that looked like a worm but countless times larger sprang out of the ground. It let out a roar and pointed its head at Zhou Ru. The part of this creature that was above ground was already over 100 feet tall. Its entire body was red and had bamboo-like sections. It looked very terrifying. There was no fear on Zhou Ru's face though. Instead, there was some excitement. She threw the fruits away, hit Little White's head and said, "Little White, you have to look carefully. Whether we can find Uncle or not depends on this." Little White rolled his eyes and let out a roar at the giant worm. The more than 100 feet long worm moved. It opened its large mouth and charged toward Zhou Ru. It moved very fast and they could smell its fishy breath as it approached. There were also countless sharp teeth in its mouth. If one were to get caught by that mouth, there wouldn't be any bones left. There wasn't any trace of fear in Zhou Ru's face. She instead became more and more excited. Her large eyes weren't even looking at the giant worm and instead she raised her head to look at the sky. Even Little White didn't retreat another step. There was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Just at the moment that the giant worm charged forth, a giant figure appeared in the sky. This figure let out a humming sound and then arrived beside Zhou Ru at an unimaginable speed. It was a giant mosquito. Its sharp mouth quickly stabbed into the worm. With a swing, the worm's entire body was dragged out from underground and thrown into the air. At this moment, the mosquito moved again and in a flash stabbed its sharp mouth into the head of the worm. Then all of the worm's blood was sucked dry by the mosquito. The mosquito threw the worm to the side. Then he looked at Zhou Ru and Little White before flying off into the distance. Zhou Ru quickly shouted, "Little White, chase quickly, chase." Little White didn't hesitate and immediately started running. Wang Lin let out the mosquito beast 1 year ago to protect Zhou Ru. He didn't want to see Zhou Ru, but he wouldn't just leave her alone on this dangerous moon. During this past year, the mosquito had saved Zhou Ru countless times. At first Zhou Ru was scared of the mosquito, but now she felt a sense of familiarity toward him. Whenever she saw him, it was like she was seeing Wang Lin. She had no memory of what happened 1 year ago, and she also had no memory of having a nascent soul in her body. It was as if it had never happened. Wang Lin wiped away those memories when he returned her soul to her body. Zhou Ru was an innocent child. She shouldn't have to suffer for Li Muan's failed awakening. Wang Lin wasn't the type to blame others in anger, and he wanted to let her live a full life. However, Wang Lin's heart was still thinking about what happened 1 year ago, so he didn't want to face Zhou Ru. This feeling was very complicated for him. Zhou Ru felt very bad for not being able to see uncle, so she started her journey to find him. The moon was very small to Wang Lin but very big to her. During this year, she and Little White had traveled across more than half of the moon. Although she hadn't seen Wang Lin once, she felt like she was getting closer to her uncle. Unfortunately, Little White was far too slow compared to the mosquito, so the mosquito's figure soon disappeared into the distance. However, Zhou Ru knew that the moment she meets danger again, that big mosquito will rush over. That big mosquito flies too fast. Little White, you're too slow. Zhou Ru pouted as she looked into the sky. Little White let out a roar filled with grievance. He thought, that mosquito is flying in the sky. If it were running on the ground, I'd definitely be faster. Zhou Ru was about to continue speaking when a gentle breeze landed on her, sending a surge of warmth through her body. Zhou Ru was startled as she looked around and whispered, Little White, don't you think this is strange? Every 3 to 5 days there is this warm breeze. Each time it lands on me, I feel warmth travel through my whole body, and then I won't feel hungry even if I don't eat. Little White shook his head and let out a low growl as a response. Zhou Ru's journey continued. What she didn't know was that Wang Lin was at the top of the mountain with his divine sense withdrawn. During this past year, although he had gone crazy, he didn't forget about Zhou Ru's safety. He would spread out his divine sense every few days to check on Zhou Ru's condition, and then send some spiritual energy into her body to prevent her from getting hungry. Wang Lin raised his head toward the sky. His eyes were currently very bright. Wang Lin had never had this type of gaze before. It was a gaze that could penetrate the heart and see through life and death. So the domain of life and death is like this. The things in this world, if I want to control them, then I can. Wang Lin's right hand reached forth and all the clouds before him gathered toward his palm. Soon, a small ball made of clouds appeared in his hand. This ball of clouds was filled with lightning. Feeling the immense power inside the ball, Wang Lin let out a deep breath. Although this ball of clouds couldn't destroy the heavens, it could kill any soul formation cultivator. If the soul transformation Li Yuanfeng were to revive, he would be destroyed by this ball as well. The life and death domain has reached completion and my cultivation has broken through the soul formation stage. I only need one more step to reach the soul transformation stage. I have already taken half of that step. Wang Lin waved his right hand and the ball of clouds disappeared. I need to prepare to reach the soul transformation stage. Wang Lin's eyes were calm. Soul transformation cultivators can be considered a real powerhouse. It is said that soul transformation cultivators are wanted by many on any cultivation planet. The giant demon clan ancestor was merely at the early stage of soul transformation, but it allowed him to control an entire clan and become their leader. Li Yuanfeng was raised to the soul transformation stage by force, but became the pillar of Shuiyu. One could see the value of a soul transformation cultivator. After all, the ascendant old monsters were always in closed-door cultivation, and there were far too few of them. Thus, soul transformation cultivators become the real backbone of any power. If we put it in the context of the mortal martial arts world, they would be the top-class experts that are admired by everyone. Among cultivators, the significance of these people are amplified by more than 1,000-fold. This was a soul transformation cultivator. Even Tianyunzi never would have expected that the little cultivator who he had good a feeling about that was on the edge of the soul formation stage would be preparing to enter the soul transformation stage only 200 years later. If Tianyunzi knew this, then Wang Lin wouldn't merely be an honorary disciple for 100 years. He would become a real disciple with certain privileges. Situ, once I reach the soul transformation stage, I'll have the power to awaken you. Wang Lin took a deep breath as he pointed at his brow. Shortly after, his body began to disappear as he went inside the heaven-defying bead. Inside the heaven-defying bead, Situ Nan's large soul was floating there. Wang Lin appeared next to it and silently stared at it. After absorbing the two arms, Situ Nan's soul was no longer transparent. It was now more solid. His soul gave off a powerful pressure. This pressure was several times stronger than ancestor Du Tian's. Situ. Wang Lin silently stared at Situ Nan for a very long time before taking a step and appearing in the eastern part of the heaven-defying bead. There was another nascent soul here. However, this nascent soul's eyes were closed as if she were sleeping. She was surrounded by spirit liquid that continuously entered her soul to provide her with energy. One air. Wang Lin's eyes became gentle. The spirit liquid surrounding Wan air was the dew from the heaven-defying bead. Wang Lin had gathered this dew over the past year. Its purpose was to help repair Li Muan's nascent soul. And with the passage of time, it will make her nascent soul even stronger. Wan air, you waited for me for 300 years. I, Wang Lin, have no way to repay you. I'll protect your nascent soul until you awaken. Until my death. Wang Lin looked at Li Muan's nascent soul for a very long time. If everything I do can be exchanged for a chance at a miracle, then I'll wait 1 year, 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years until my death. Wang Lin looked tenderly at Li Muan as memories of the past flashed across his mind. Memories are like water in your palm. It doesn't matter whether you have your hand open or if it's holding it tightly, it will still leak drop by drop until it's all gone. However, the coolness of the water is unforgettable. Wang Lin walked up and gently kissed her forehead. His warmth was slowly transmitted to Wan air. Wan air's body trembled. She felt Wang Lin's lips in his warmth. This warmth contained an unerasable joy, a silent call, and a sense of protection that will never fade. Love is like a river. The left shore is the joyous laughter that can brighten up 1,000 years of sadness, and the right shore is an eternal silence lingering under the candlelight. What flows between them is years of fading loneliness. Wang Lin turned around and left the heaven-defying bead. Although he left the heaven-defying bead, his heart remained there for all of eternity. On the top of the mountain, under the starlight in the middle of the night, the lonely figure under the rain seems like it is about to be shattered by the wind. The uncertain sadness is what always gets blown away by the wind, but the loneliness of having no family or friends is the fire that the wind can never extinguish. The lonely figure raised his well-structured face to face the darkness in the sky, to face the brightness of the stars. There he saw the figure of a woman that will forever remain in his heart. Zhou Ru's journey to find Uncle continued. She had no idea why Uncle left, so she wanted to find Wang Lin and ask him for the reason. At this moment, Wang Lin was on top of a mountain with all of the celestial jades he owned on the ground around him. While sitting in the middle of the circle, he put aside all other thoughts in his mind and concentrated on cultivating. The current Wang Lin's cultivation level had reached the peak of the soul formation stage and his domain had reached completion, so now he needed to break through to the soul transformation stage. The soul transformation stage is a goal all cultivators pursue. Once they reach the soul transformation stage, their domains can materialize, causing its power to reach an unimaginable degree. Aside from that, they will be able to absorb celestial spiritual energy. This means that all of their techniques and spells will contain celestial spiritual energy, making them infinitely more powerful. In ancient times, before the celestial realm collapsed, a soul transformation cultivator wasn't a rare sight. However, now that the celestial realm has collapsed, a soul transformation cultivator is a powerhouse. The key to breaking through from the soul formation stage to the soul transformation stage is the amount of celestial jades. The more celestial jades there are, the more dense the celestial spiritual energy will be, and therefore the chance of breaking through to the soul transformation will be higher. Of course, one's domain plays a large role in reaching the soul transformation stage as well. If one's domain doesn't reach completion, then that person will have no hopes of ever reaching the soul transformation stage. Comprehension of the laws of the heavens is of great importance for a soul transformation cultivator. Wang Lin's comprehension of the heavens law was different from others. After seeing that the heavens messenger was an ancient god, he developed a hint of doubt. What is the heavens law? Wang Lin's earlier understanding was that the heaven's law was a natural law that has always existed, like the law of destruction. No one can replace the heaven's law. Cultivators merely go against the heaven's law and break free from it. No one thinks that they can replace or control the heaven's law. However, after Wang Lin saw the ancient god, his understanding of the heaven's law underwent a subtle change. There was a mystery before him, but with his current understanding, he couldn't comprehend all of it. Heaven's law, interesting. Wang Lin's eyes sparkled. He took a deep breath and opened all the pores in his body to absorb the celestial spiritual energy from the celestial jades around him. When Wang Lin went to the celestial realm, he was able to obtain quite a few celestial jades. These celestial jades became the driving force for Wang Lin to reach the soul transformation stage. At this moment, a powerful surge of celestial spiritual energy entered Wang Lin's body. Compared to the last few times he absorbed celestial spiritual energy, it was a lot less painful this time. The celestial spiritual energy surged into him and suppressed the spiritual energy in his body. The two different forces were like fire and water as they began a life and death battle in his body. Wang Lin's body had a lot of spiritual energy, so at first, when only a bit of celestial spiritual energy entered his body, it was immediately beaten back. However, as time passed and more celestial spiritual energy entered his body, the spiritual energy could no longer hold the celestial spiritual energy back. Although there was still much more spiritual energy than celestial spiritual energy, the difference in quality was too high. A strand of celestial spiritual energy was equal to all of the spiritual energy of a core formation cultivator. As a result, the spiritual energy was naturally pushed back. When a soul formation cultivator becomes a soul transformation cultivator, their spiritual energy will go through one of two types of changes. The first one is all the spiritual energy is pushed out of one's body, and then, when it contains only celestial spiritual energy, the body transformations and breaks through to the soul transformation. This method is relatively easy and it's what most cultivators choose to do. However, all of that spiritual energy is wasted and will have to be cultivated back. Also, their cultivation at the early stage of soul transformation ends up being unstable. This method also requires a cultivator to go into closed-door cultivation for 100 years to adjust their body. The second method is to refine the spiritual energy in one's body until it reaches the same quality as celestial spiritual energy. This method is very difficult as the spiritual energy needs to be refined constantly. But once it succeeds, it gives one a great advantage during the early stage of soul transformation. One won't need to go into closed-door cultivation for 100 years and they will still have the same result. The advantage of the second method is to save 100 years of closed-door cultivation, and naturally this increases cultivation speed by a lot. Wang Lin chose the second method. After all, he didn't have the time to go into 100 years of closed-door cultivation. The spiritual energy in his body was being compressed by the celestial spiritual energy. The compressed spiritual energy then slowly gathered at this danton. Next, celestial spiritual energy would course through the veins around his danton. This was a process of transformation. The celestial spiritual energy was like a mill grinding the spiritual energy inside Wang Lin's body to refine it to the point that it could fuse with the celestial spiritual energy. This process was very slow. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Wang Lin still hadn't moved. Of the celestial jades around him had turned gray, and some of them had already shattered. Not enough. Wang Lin's eyes suddenly opened. There seemed to be celestial spiritual energy moving inside his eyes. Right now he looked like a celestial. Although the amount of celestial jades Wang Lin had couldn't compare to what the big sects had, it was still a lot. But looking at it now, it was far from enough to reach the soul transformation stage. He had only gone through 1% of the transformation, and the spiritual energy in his body was only compressed but hadn't fused yet. Wang Lin muttered to himself, "No wonder there are so few soul transformation cultivators. The amount of celestial jades needed to reach the soul transformation stage is something even some big sects can't handle. No wonder." The giant demon clan ancestor used resources from the entire clan and all of the celestial jades chi, who had brought back to finally reach the soul transformation stage. This only succeeded because the giant demon clan also had a large stock of celestial jades from when their clan moved to planet Suzaku. In truth, the giant demon clan ancestor could have reached the soul transformation stage a long time ago, but they simply didn't have enough celestial jades, so it was delayed until recently. It has to be said that celestial jades aren't solely used for breaking through the soul formation stage to the soul transformation stage. Once a cultivator is above the soul transformation stage, they need celestial jades to fight, to heal, and even to refine treasures. Rumor has it that the number of celestial jades required to reach the ascendant stage is tens of thousands of times greater than the amount needed to reach the soul transformation stage. Then for the level above that, the amount is just unimaginable. The only place to get celestial jades is the celestial realm. After the celestial realm collapsed, the celestial veins disappeared, causing the amount of celestial jades to be very limited. Thus, one can easily imagine the value of a celestial jade. In the current cultivation world, the more time passes, the fewer high-level cultivators there will be, as it's getting harder to find the resources to cultivate. 1 month later, all of Wang Lin's celestial jades had shattered, and there wasn't any more celestial spiritual energy left. He had to stop his absorption. The pagoda has a lot of celestial spiritual energy, but since I promised Joey that I would protect the celestial corpse, I can't have any ideas about the pagoda. Wang Lin stood up and looked into the distance. His divine sense spread out and covered most of the moon. After completing 1% of the conversion, his divine sense was also stronger. The soul refining sect must have a lot of celestial jades saved up. The other sects almost certainly have some as well. I can't ask, so I'll have to steal them. I must reach the soul transformation stage. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and then his body disappeared. Zhou Ru was spiritless. While riding on Little White's back, she looked at the vast plain before her. Leaving me all alone here while he went to do God knows, it's so infuriating. Zhou Ru held a fruit in her hand and took a big bite. Little Ru air. A familiar voice entered Zhou Ru's ears. She was startled and immediately turned around. Behind her, Wang Lin's familiar figure slowly appeared. Uncle. Zhou Ru's face was filled with joy as she jumped off Little White. In a few steps, she arrived before Wang Lin and jumped into his arms. Zhou Ru was no longer a little girl. The current her was already 20 years old. Uncle, where did you go? You left me all by myself. Zhou Ru's eyes turned red. In Wang Lin's eyes, she was still a child. He gently patted her head, and his eyes contained a hint of complex emotion as he smiled. Uncle went out to deal with some matters and now I'm finished. Little Ru air, do you miss your parents? I'll take you home. Zhou Ru wiped away her tears and happily said, We're going to leave? Okay. Wang Lin looked at Zhou Ru. He personally watched this child grow up just like Donghua. He slapped his bag of holding and the pagoda flew out and landed on the side. After Zhou Ru saw the pagoda, she pouted and said, Uncle, I remember when I was little I almost starved to death inside the pagoda. Wang Lin waved his right hand and a large amount of fruits from the moon filled the pagoda. After Zhou Ru and Little White entered the pagoda, Wang Lin looked toward the sky. A black dot slowly got bigger and bigger until it was revealed to be the mosquito beast. It let out a roar as it landed before Wang Lin with joy in its eyes. Its large mouth licked Wang Lin all over. Clearly missed Wang Lin a lot. Let's go,